I'm Shira Bergbauer, and you're listening to an excerpt from the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. I often share a story about how I came to comprehend the mental load of motherhood. So, my husband and I were driving from an event, and my daughter had swimming class. And it was during the pandemic. And so we had to fill out this COVID paperwork. Every day she went swimming. It's an online form. You fill it out, you take a screenshot of it. So when you show up, you have it. She also needs to wear swim diapers to swim. So I needed to order replacements for the swim diapers. So I was like going through the mental checklist in my head. My husband was speaking to me and I was like getting distracted and he was like, "Hey, are you listening to me?" And I looked at him and I was like, "Do you ever think about these things?" And then I started telling him the things that I was thinking of. He was like, "No." And in that moment, I realized like, wow, he just thinks they just happen. Like they just literally happen. And years ago, before we had our daughter, I was in Belize on a mission trip and something happened to the water in our home. And my husband, who obviously knows how to turn off water, calls me while I'm in Belize to help him figure out what's happening with the water. And in my mind, I was like, the first thing I would do is call the water company, right? And I realized that I had kind of set a precedence where I managed a lot of the household day to day stuff. So he honestly didn't even know our water account number. What I did in response to that was write down all the information on a piece of paper, have it like this is the water company phone number, this is the account number, this is the step by step. So when I returned from Belize, like that was my first thing. I was like, this is our cleaning lady's phone number, this is the electric company, like all the information. I put it down and I put it on paper on the fridge and I had it available so that he knew. And then when we had our daughter, I created a list with emergency information, the pediatrician's phone number, the where does she go in an emergency, who do we call if something happens, the fire station, like what is the gate code. It's all on a piece of paper just so in case something happens, like even with our childcare providers, they would also always be able to call those numbers and have them ready. It does become a lot because you really would want the help, but sometimes they just don't even know where to start helping you because they don't. To us, it sometimes like always looks easy, but then it's not when you like when I listed the responsibilities, it's almost like, wow, we do all of that and then some. So how do we manage this load? How can we better share with our society and our jobs and our spouses? How can we make this load a little more bearable? In order to start the conversation, it's important for us to heighten the awareness amongst ourselves as mothers of the degree to which and areas in which we might unwittingly shoulder disproportionate household responsibilities compared to our partners, and also share the potential fallout. Some researchers have argued that given that society expects women more so than men to be communal, we may tend to take on the invisible work in the service of others, and this tendency may spread beyond the household and into the work setting. One of the examples they shared is that amongst married or partners physicians with children, women spend the equivalent of a full workday per week on domestic activities as compared to men. And when both partners are employed, they were about 3 times as likely as men to take time off when childcare arrangements were disrupted. Just like I shared in the example with my friend and the nanny, that does happen. It's consistent in our society. At the same time, in the work setting, female physicians provide better quality care to patients than men do. And this was based on research by Sugawa and his colleagues in 2017. And I'm going to link this in the show notes. And in a range of professional settings, women are more likely to take on communal and invisible labor to keep the workplace running smooth. So, like, think about the times at work, like, there's an event, there's a birthday party, like, it's usually the women in the group that are like putting the stuff together. But there are physiological and emotional costs linked with shouldering additional responsibilities at work that we need to acknowledge and that we also need to help mitigate. Also, the findings on dimensions of intimacy support the importance of mothering mothers. we need to be mothering our mothers and taking care of our moms. The research on resilience has shown that to foster the well being of children, especially when under stress, it's essential that moms receive the nurturance, care, and replenishment that they are expected to put out for so many others. We constantly fill everybody else's cup before we fill ours. We constantly put the oxygen mask on everybody else before we put it on ourselves. Interestingly, too, among well educated employed mothers contending with high demands both at home and at work, which is many of you who are listening, the research has shown that the ongoing availability of reliable, authentic connections in mothers' everyday work settings can significantly reduce caregiving burnout and parenting stress while improving mental health and even reducing levels of the stress hormone cortisol. Going back to connection and our need for connections as human beings, and understanding that when we create work environments that we create authentic connections with each other, we actually help reduce caregiver burnout and parenting stress. So, leaning in and supporting other moms, leaning in and supporting new moms, leaning in and looking out for a mom who might be struggling that you may not have, reached out to in the past, but being cognizant of the fact that we are all on this journey together. And if we connect and share the struggle, it helps us make it easier, which is part of the reason why I created this community, because I understand there is enough podcasts out there, there are enough groups out there, there are enough life coaches out there. But my contribution to working mothers is to create an environment where we can have these connections, to create an environment where people can be vulnerable and hold space for them. So I really, really think this is key in order for us to move forward and in order for us to normalize the conversation around the mental load. I'm Shira Bergbauer, and you're listening to an excerpt from the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. You can listen to the whole episode wherever you get your podcasts, and look out for new episodes out every Monday. You're doing a great job, Mama. I'll see you next week. Bye now.